I never thought I'd be the one to break my brother's heart. After everything he's sacrificed for me, here I am, about to become the villain in his story. The engagement ring on my finger feels like a shackle now, cold, heavy, and a constant reminder of the impossible choice I'm facing. Do I marry the man whose family is trying to bleed my brother dry? Or do I walk away and devastate the one person who has given up everything to make sure I had a chance at happiness? Sometimes I wonder if love is just another word for sacrifice, and if so, I've been on the receiving end of it my entire life. I was 5 when my mother died. The memories I have of her are like faded photographs. Her smile, the scent of jasmine in her hair, the softness of her hands. But after a prolonged illness took her away, my world collapsed into shadows. My father, unable to cope with his grief, found solace at the bottom of a bottle. He wasn't violent or cruel, just absent, a ghost drifting through our home, leaving my 10-year-old brother to pick up the pieces of our shattered family. Rahul became my everything: brother, father, mother, protector. Our aging grandmother moved in to help, but it was Rahul who packed my lunches, checked my homework, and tucked me in at night. It was Rahul who held me during thunderstorms and bandaged my scraped knees. It was Rahul who attended every parent-teacher meeting, his young face solemn among the adults, determined that I would never feel the absence of our parents' love. While other boys his age played cricket in the streets of our small town in Gujarat, Rahul learned to cook dal and roti. While they dreamed of adventures in big cities, he calculated household expenses. Our father would hand over most of his paycheck, keeping just enough for his drinking, and Rahul would stretch those rupees until they screamed, making sure I never went without. I didn't fully understand what he was sacrificing until I was older. He had qualified for one of India's top engineering colleges, a golden ticket out of our provincial town, but he turned it down. When I discovered this years later and demanded to know why, he simply shrugged. "Who would have made sure you finished your homework properly?" As if giving up his dreams was nothing compared to making sure I had someone to read me bedtime stories. By the time I reached high school, our grandmother had grown frail. Rahul hired a part-time caretaker, another expense we could barely afford, so that I wouldn't have to sacrifice my studies or teenage years the way he had sacrificed his. I excelled in my classes, fueled by a desperate need to make his sacrifices worthwhile, to become someone who deserved the life he had given me. When I ranked well in the national engineering entrance exams and earned a spot at a prestigious university hundreds of kilometers away, I thought Rahul would finally tell me it was too expensive, too far, too much. Instead, he beamed with pride and started calculating how to afford my tuition and living expenses. "I'll take a student loan," I insisted, already aware of how tight our finances were. Rahul's face hardened in that stubborn way I knew all too well. "Your older brother is not dead that you need to worry about these things," he said, the phrase that would become his mantra whenever I tried to ease his burdens. The same thing happened when I pursued my MBA. More expenses, more sacrifices I wasn't allowed to prevent. While my classmates complained about their parents' expectations or restrictions, I carried the weight of being someone's entire reason for existing. Rahul had built his life around ensuring mine would be better than his. Our grandmother passed away during my final year of engineering. Her death seemed to shock our father back to reality. He stopped drinking and tried to make amends, but the damage was done. He deferred to Rahul on everything, as if acknowledging that his firstborn had truly become the head of our family through years of shouldering responsibilities that should never have been his. 5 years ago, Rahul finally allowed himself some happiness when he married Priya. I adored her instantly, kind, intelligent, and one of the few people who could occasionally persuade my stubborn brother to accept help. Their son, my nephew Arjun, became the light of my life, a chubby-cheeked reminder that joy could still bloom in our family, despite its broken foundations. Even in marriage, Rahul's sense of duty never wavered. He supported not only us but also Priya's struggling parents. He paid for his own wedding, a simple, one-day ceremony with no elaborate rituals or gift exchanges. When I offered to contribute, he shut me down with those familiar words: "Your older brother is not dead that you need to worry about these things." By then, I had established myself in the tech industry in Noida, earning more than Rahul ever could in our hometown's limited job market. The irony wasn't lost on me. His sacrifices had enabled my success, but he wouldn't let me use that success to ease his burdens. I tried countless times to help financially, especially after our father's health began declining, adding medical expenses to their already stretched budget. Each time, Rahul refused. One evening, desperate to understand, I called Priya privately. "He doesn't think of you as a sister," she explained gently. "In his heart, you're his daughter. The kind of man he is, he will not take money from his daughter for his son." Her words cut deep, not because they were hurtful, but because they were true. Somewhere along the way, the 10-year age gap and his parental role had transformed our relationship. I wasn't just his sister, I was his life's purpose, his greatest accomplishment. How do you repay someone who doesn't want repayment? How do you lighten the load of someone who believes carrying it defines them? When I met Vikram 2 years ago at a corporate retreat, I never imagined he would become the catalyst for my current crisis. He was charming, ambitious, and seemed to understand the complex dynamics of my family without judgment. When our relationship grew serious, I told him how important my brother's approval would be. He nodded thoughtfully, claiming to admire Rahul's dedication and agreeing that we should plan a simple wedding like my brother's, with no dowry or excessive ceremonies. We even fantasized about convincing Rahul to let my nephew stay with us occasionally, giving them financial breathing room while allowing me to bond with Arjun. Looking back now, I wonder if I was too eager to believe Vikram understood my family's values, too relieved to find someone who wouldn't be intimidated by the unusual closeness I shared with my brother. A month ago, I finally told Rahul that Vikram was the one. He arranged to meet Vikram's family, a traditional first step in Indian matchmaking. Afterward, Rahul called me, his voice oddly hesitant. "Are you sure about him, Mira? Do you really love him? Is he someone you want to spend the rest of your life with?" I didn't understand his concern then, so I answered confidently, "Yes, absolutely." What I didn't know was that during that meeting, Vikram's family had made their expectations clear. They hadn't directly demanded anything, that would be too crude. But they had indicated to Rahul that as the bride's guardian, he would be expected to bear all wedding costs, the engagement ceremony, the wedding itself, the reception, and accommodations for their extended family. They had also hinted that in their family, it was tradition for the bride's family to make the down payment on the couple's first home. Vikram finally told me all this a week ago, unable to meet my eyes as he spoke. He claimed he had tried to dissuade his parents, but they had insisted these weren't demands, merely traditions that my family should respect if they valued the alliance. When I confronted Rahul, he gave his standard response. "Your older brother is not dead that you need to worry about these things." But this time, the words felt like a knife twisting in my gut. I called Priya, frantic to understand how they planned to afford these extravagant expectations. "We have a plan," she said calmly. "We'll sell the ancestral land and use that for your home's down payment. Rahul will liquidate his investments and sell our current house for the wedding expenses." I nearly dropped the phone. The ancestral land, a valuable property that was expected to appreciate significantly when the government developed that area in the 2030s. Rahul had planned to sell it eventually and give me 75% of the proceeds, keeping only a quarter for his own family. As for their home, it was the only stability they had, the one place that had remained constant through all our family's turmoil. They were prepared to sacrifice everything, again, just because I had said I loved Vikram. For the past week, I've barely slept. The engagement ceremony is set for early December, less than a month away. Every time my phone rings with another wedding plan question from Vikram's mother, my stomach churns. Every time Rahul calls to assure me everything is arranged, I fight back tears. I've started to resent everyone, Vikram, for his weakness in standing up to his family, his parents, for their entitled expectations, my brother, for his stubborn refusal to let me be an adult, my father, for his continued passivity, and myself, most of all, for not seeing this disaster coming. Vikram's transformation has been the most painful to witness. The man who once nodded in agreement about our simple wedding now shrugs helplessly when his mother demands a 3-day extravaganza with hundreds of guests. The partner who supposedly admired my brother's values now suggests that tradition is important to my family whenever I protest their demands. Last night, after another tense call with Vikram that ended with his reassurance that your brother doesn't mind, he wants you to have the best, I sat on my balcony until dawn, staring at the lights of Noida spreading below me like fallen stars. I removed my engagement ring, holding it up to the fading darkness. It felt immensely heavy for such a small object, or perhaps what was heavy was the knowledge of what it would cost my brother. The truth I've been avoiding crashed into me with the first rays of sunrise. I cannot marry Vikram. Not like this. Not at the expense of my brother's security, not with in-laws who view my family as a resource to be exploited rather than people to be respected. But breaking the engagement would devastate Rahul in a different way. He would blame himself for failing to provide me with the wedding and marriage he thinks I deserve. Either choice feels like betrayal. The memories of my childhood have been surfacing with increasing frequency. I remember being 9 years old, waking from a nightmare to find 15-year-old Rahul studying at our small dining table by flashlight because the electricity had been cut off again. I remember being 12 and discovering that the new shoes Rahul had given me for my birthday meant he continued wearing his old worn-out ones. I remember being 16 and overhearing him on the phone with his friends, declining their invitation to a cricket match because Mira has her final exams next week, and I need to help her prepare. I never asked for these sacrifices. I never wanted him to shrink his world to expand mine. But they were given freely, consistently, without complaint or expectation of gratitude. How do you repay someone for giving you their life, one day at a time? My resentment toward Rahul isn't really resentment at all. It's frustration at not being allowed to love him the way he has loved me. He raised me to be strong and independent, yet won't let me exercise that independence when it comes to supporting. He treats his wife as an equal partner in all things, but won't allow me the dignity of contributing to our family's welfare. He shows me what respect for women looks like while denying me the opportunity to be the woman, the sister I want to be. Sometimes I fantasize about shouting at him, forcing him to see me as an adult capable of making my own choices and bearing my own burdens. Other times, I want nothing more than to curl up beside him like I did as a child and apologize for being the reason his wings were clipped before he ever got the chance to fly. Yesterday, I visited them in our hometown, ostensibly to discuss wedding preparations, but really to see for myself what my potential marriage was costing them. Rahul and Priya's modest home was filled with real estate brochures. They were already looking at smaller apartments they could afford after selling our family house. Arjun was excited about the idea of moving, innocent to the fact that this change wasn't by choice but by necessity. While Rahul was bathing Arjun, I helped Priya prepare dinner. She worked with quiet efficiency, her teacher's hands neatly chopping vegetables. "Are you sure about this?" I asked softly, unable to look at her. She paused. "About what? All of it. Selling the house, the land, DC. Starting over in a smaller place. Is this really what you want?" Priya's smile was gentle but tired. "What I want is for my husband to be happy. You know as well as I do that your happiness is his happiness. But what about your happiness? What about Arjun's future?" She resumed chopping, her knife hitting the cutting board with rhythmic precision. "We'll be fine, Mira. Your brother has never made a decision he couldn't follow through on." That night, after dinner, I watched Rahul read a bedtime story to Arjun, their heads bent together over a colorful picture book. My father sat in his usual chair, nodding off occasionally, aged beyond his years by illness and regret. This was the family I could not bear to hurt, yet was hurting already through my choices. Before I left the next morning, I found Rahul drinking tea on the small porch, watching the sunrise, a habit he'd maintained since childhood. "Why did you never leave?" I asked abruptly. "You could have gone anywhere, done anything." He looked surprised by my question. "And leave you? Leave Patajai? This is home, Mira." "But you had dreams," I insisted. "You could have been so much more." His laugh was soft, devoid of bitterness. "More than what? More than your brother? More than Priya's husband? More than Arjun's father? What exactly do you think I missed out on?" I couldn't answer. We sat in silence until he reached over and squeezed my hand. "Whatever you're worrying about, stop. I have exactly the life I want." But as I boarded the train back to Noida, I couldn't shake the feeling that he was lying, not to me, but to himself. 3 days ago, I met Vikram for coffee at our usual place. He was talking about hiring a famous choreographer for our wedding dance when I interrupted him. "I can't do this." He blinked, his excitement fading. "Do what? The dance? That's fine. We can skip the wedding. Any of it." "I can't marry you." His expression cycled through confusion, shock, and anger so quickly, it was almost comical. "Is this because of my parents?" "I told you, I'll talk to them again." "When?" I demanded. "You've had weeks to stand up to them, to honor the promises you made to me about what our wedding would be like. Instead, you've watched them systematically strip my brother of everything he has without saying a word." "That's not fair," he protested. "Indian weddings are expensive. Everyone knows the bride's family." "My brother is not my father," I cut in. "He's my brother who has already sacrificed his entire life for me. And your family knows exactly what they're doing. They've seen our modest home, they know our circumstances, and they've deliberately chosen to exploit my brother's love for me." Vikram's face hardened. So this is how you show gratitude for everything my parents are willing to overlook? Your drunk father? Your unusual family situation? Do you know how many families would reject such a match outright? In that moment, I saw him clearly for the first time. Not the man I thought I loved, but someone who had been carefully hiding his true values behind a mask of understanding. Someone who viewed my family's struggles as deficiencies to be overlooked, rather than strengths to be admired. "Thank you," I said quietly. "For what? For showing me who you really are before it was too late." I placed my engagement ring on the table between us and walked out without looking back. The hardest conversation was still ahead of me. Last evening, I called Rahul and asked him to video chat after Arjun was asleep. When his face appeared on my screen, tired but smiling, my carefully rehearsed speech evaporated. "I broke up with Vikram," I blurted. Rahul's smile vanished. "What happened? Did he hurt you?" The protectiveness in his voice made my eyes sting. Even now, his first thought was for my welfare, not the investments and property he would no longer need to liquidate. "No, not in the way you're thinking," I said. But I realized I didn't love him enough to justify what our marriage would cost you. Rahul's expression shifted as something I recognized from childhood, the look he got when I injured myself, and he was trying not to show his pain. "Mira, I told you not to worry about any of that. The costs don't matter. They do matter. You matter. Your family matters. And I won't be the reason you lose your home or the land that should be securing Arjun's future. It's my choice to make." "No," I interrupted, surprising both of us with my firmness. "For 30 years you've made every choice with my welfare in mind. Just this once, I'm making a choice with yours in mind, and you need to respect that." Silence stretched between us, heavy with unspoken emotion. "I'm sorry," he finally said. "For what?" "For making you feel responsible for my choices. That was never my intention." I took a deep breath. "And I'm sorry for not appreciating sooner how much you've given up for me. But Baya, you have to understand something. I'm not a child anymore. I'm a woman you raised to be strong and independent, and that means I get to decide how I show my love for you, just as you've always decided how to show your love for me." His eyes glistened. "When did my little sister become so wise?" "When her big brother taught her what real love looks like." We talked for hours that night. Really talked, as equals, perhaps for the first time. I told him about my resentment, my frustration, my guilt. He admitted that he sometimes didn't know how to be just my brother instead of my guardian. We cried, we laughed, and somewhere in that long conversation, something fundamental shifted between us. This morning, I submitted an application for a 3-bedroom apartment in Noida, large enough for my father, Rahul, Priya, Arjun, and me, if they choose to accept my invitation to move here. Not because I'm forcing them, not because I'm trying to repay an unpayable debt, but because family supports each other in whatever ways they can. I don't know if Rahul will agree. 30 years of habits don't change overnight. But, for the first time, I feel like we might find a new balance, one where his sacrifices are honored without becoming shackles for either of us. I've spent my life being loved by someone who put my needs above his own. Now I'm learning that sometimes, the greatest act of love is refusing to let someone sacrifice everything for you. Sometimes, love means having the courage to say no to the people we care about most, not to hurt them, but to protect them from their own boundless capacity for self-denial. The engagement ring is gone, but I don't feel its absence. What I feel instead is the weight lifting, not just from my finger, but from my heart. I don't know what the future holds, whether I'll find love again or whether Rahul will ever fully accept my help. What I do know is that true love, in all its forms, shouldn't diminish us. It shouldn't require one person to become smaller so another can grow. If my brother taught me anything, it's that real love is not about sacrifice. It's about choice. What? And today, I'm choosing to love him as fiercely as he has always loved me, even if that means refusing to let him give up anything more. Some debts can never be repaid. Some sacrifices can never be undone. But perhaps they don't need to be. Perhaps all we can do is acknowledge them, honor them, and then choose to write a different story for our future. One where love doesn't cost us everything, but instead gives us the strength to stand together, side by side, neither one in the other's shadow.